All right, this would be one of those times in class where I would ask you questions and we could discuss stuff and think about our answers and all that fun stuff that we can't do, at least not at the moment. We could maybe over Google Meet, but just want to run through some examples and get you sort of thinking about positive and negative correlation and strong and weak correlation. So I got some examples here, and I just want you to try to think of what the correlation is. Is it positive or negative? Is it strong or weak before I give you the answer? I mean, I haven't researched any of these exactly, but I can tell you what I would suspect they would be and what I'm reasonably certain most of them would be. So let's look at one. Height versus arm span. If I were to measure a bunch of people's heights and their arm span, would I find that there was a positive or a negative correlation between the two? I'd have to expect that to be positive. The taller you are, the longer your arms tend to be. Would it be a strong correlation or a weak correlation? If I were to graph these numbers, would I get a nice linear trend or would it sort of be all over the place? I think it would be fairly strong. Not perfectly, but it should be a fairly strong correlation. So fairly strong positive correlation. How about the number of absences you have from class in a semester and the grade you end up getting in that class? More absences, do you think you'd have a higher or a lower grade? My suspicion is that if I were to look at people with more absences, they tend to have lower grades. Okay, so that would be a negative correlation. How strong would it be? Do you think it'd be a nice linear, miss a class, drop a few points, miss a class, drop a few points? No, it doesn't work like that. Sometimes the people who miss a lot of classes aren't bad students. They just don't need to come to class because they get so easily. So we have some people with a lot of absences with high grades, and vice versa. Some people that are there every day are not going to do that well. So it would be a negative correlation, but it would be a very weak negative correlation. The summer temperature per day and how much it costs you to cool your house. Well, if the temperature goes up, it's going to cost you more to cool the house. So you'd have a positive correlation there, and I would expect it to be fairly strong also. This one's for you, Alyssa. Chickens. How old a chicken is, or a hen actually, and how many eggs it produces per week. Do you think as a chicken gets older, and once it starts laying, as it gets older, is it going to lay more or fewer eggs per week? It happens to be that it would lay fewer. So as you get older, if we're looking at our scatter plot here, as you go out the x-axis, you decrease. That would be a negative correlation. And I have really no idea how strong that correlation would be. I don't think it would be perfectly correlated, but I think it would be relatively strong. How fast do you drive and the number of speeding tickets you get? I've got to think that would be a positive correlation. How strong? I don't think it would be terribly strong. How fast you drive and how long it takes you to get where you're going, that would be a negative correlation, because the faster you drive, the less time it takes you to get there. So as speed goes up, time goes down, negative correlation. Number of heads in a classroom versus the number of legs in a classroom. For the vast majority of people, most of the time, that is going to be a direct correlation. So add another person, you get one more head, two more legs, and those points should be right on a line. Not exactly all of them, we know that. Some people are missing legs, most people aren't missing heads. Your IQ and your income. What do you think about that? If you have a higher IQ, do you tend to make more? I don't think you can make a case that higher IQ, you tend to make less. So I think that's got to be positively correlated. But just because you're smart doesn't mean you chose a profession that makes a lot of money. So, says the teacher. So the correlation is not going to be a very, very strong. It'll be relatively strong. The trend does tend to hold, but there are many, many exceptions to it. And number of people living in the house and the number, I'm sorry, you can see my laptop screen there. The number of people living in the house and the number of cars parked in the driveway. Positive or negative? I think it's pretty obvious that should be positive. We actually did that last semester and found that it was a positive correlation. but it was not very strong at all. And there were a lot of real exceptions to it. So I hope that helps you understand the idea of positive, negative, strong, and weak correlations a little better. We'll come back and look at the next thing on our list. I can't remember what it is. I shut my laptop, my list on my laptop.